Hello there. As talk of a major, unheard of escalation in the form of Iran as a whole civilization being wiped out with no chance of being brought back appears to be approaching a new boiling point, if one is to take the warning in US President Donald Trump's latest social media post literally. The South Caucasus has been, with the exception of one major spillover episode observed on the 5th of March, a terrain of relative tranquility and calm, despite its geographical proximity to the horrors of the war to the south. The world is watching expectantly and with a degree of undeniable perturbation. So too are Azerbaijan and Armenia, two countries of the region which, as of August 2025, have been in a state of formal or semi-formal peace, depending on one's interpretation of the term, after decades of war and animosity, the consequences of which are yet to be fully addressed. Despite the absence of signed formal peace agreement, officials from the two countries have been in close contact, so much so that when Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan region was struck in what is widely recognized, except by Tehran itself, as an Iranian drone attack, Armenian Foreign Minister Arat Mirzayan called his Azerbaijani counterpart Ceyhun Bayramov to express his concerns, with some talk of coordination between them subsequently emerging. Although the de facto peace between Baku and Yerevan had been in place well before August 2025, it was at that point that what we now see institutionally began to take shape. To be more precise, on the 8th of August 2025, the very same US president who is now threatening Iran with complete obliteration, not only figuratively but also quite literally, played an instrumental role in helping Azerbaijan and Armenia agree on a series of arrangements. These included the initialing of the peace agreement, still pending formal signing, as well as a vital connectivity deal, which until then had been a key point of contention. Incidentally, that very connectivity deal involves an overland multimodal route connecting two parts of Azerbaijan, its mainland and its Nakhchivan exclave, through southern Armenia, via what is labeled as a Trump route for international peace and prosperity. Iran has been fundamentally opposed to the idea in all of its manifestations since 2020, although it has more recently downgraded its position from a red line to what it now describes as a profound concern. Well, what will be the impact of the unfolding Iran war on the South Caucasus? This is question number one. And what is likely to happen to the Azerbaijan-Armenia peace agenda, irrespective of the Iran crisis, with crucial parliamentary elections in Armenia fast approaching? You're watching Context. I'm Okan Amushov here. And joining me now are Arsen Kharatyan, founder of Alek Media in Yerevan, Armenia, and Ahmad Alili, director of the Caucasus Policy Analysis Center, joining us from Baku, Azerbaijan. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Arsen, how concerned are you about the approaching US deadline targeting Iran's energy infrastructure, not just from the perspective of Iran, but from the perspective of this region, Azerbaijan and Armenia?
It is quite concerning from the very beginning. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. It is indeed concerning, not just for Armenia and Azerbaijan, but for the wider region, including Georgia, if we're talking about South Caucasus. The general sort of concerns are quite clear. All of us here obviously are not interested in any kind of spillover of that war over to our part of the region. We need stability and some kind of a diplomatic and political solution in Iran, because it's clear if things go south, if things start getting worse, it will ultimately, by no doubt, will impact us as well. Now, there are several areas, and I'm sure we will have a chance to touch upon where we have specific concerns. As you mentioned, that tiny incident that happened in Nakhchivan was a negative sign in this part of the region. We were quite concerned as well. The only sort of visible sign of anything that could happen in Armenia was the American University in Armenia that stopped its classes physically last week because there was a concern coming that Iran was sort of going to target educational institutions as well. I think that was the reason why it was shut down. But if things start going worse, I'm sure we will all be impacted, and not in a positive way. So we are concerned, obviously. We are watching and following every minute of it, I would say, or at least those who are interested in Iran and in the region politically and from the perspective of the escalation of this conflict. So we hope that what we're hearing on the level of rhetoric from the Trump White House will not materialize, but we'll have to wait and see.
Thank you, Hassan. Basically, same question to you, Ahmad. How concerned are you about this deadline, which is looming and approaching, very fast approaching? Actually, I think Baku time will be 4 p.m. If by that time Strait of Hormuz is not opened, then the US will act decisively, as President Donald Trump is saying. But a more specific sort of addition to that question, one of the most fascinating aspects of this crisis has been what appears to be a degree of coordination between Azerbaijan and Armenia, particularly in the immediate aftermath of the 5th of March episode. Your thoughts and evaluation of the situation, Ahmad?
Yeah, basically what Arsen said, I can also agree with all of those points. And that it's, I believe, a great indicator that Armenian, Azerbaijani political researchers, they are on this issue, on many issues, and particularly on these issues concerning the security affairs bordering the region. So it shows that Baku and Yerevan also, their understanding of the threats surrounding the region, it's also aligned. So their vision how to tackle this question, it's also like that we see that there is a very close mirroring each other on this issue. So this is also a great sign of the like the achievements of the peace building that's taking place between two countries, two nations. So that is why I like that when I'm saying that I basically agree with the points raised by Arsen. That is not just a saying that one person agrees with other person, but it also shows that there is a very strategic thinking alignment between Baku and Yerevan, and especially between the Armenian and Azerbaijan experts. But I'm going to add a few points to what Arsen said. There is a threat, and actually there are threats, like in the southern and the northern borders. We are surrounded by these threats, but kind of like that, we have to understand that these threats are making our region valuable for the external powers. So the region, if there was not a danger in the southern part of the region, the northern part of the region, and then we are witnessing how all of those European and the Asian airlines, they are using Azerbaijani, Georgian, Armenian airspace to reach from the west to east and vice versa. So this shows that by the regions, Iran and Russia, by the tension increasing at the borders of our region, that leads to the increased importance of the region, and how we're going to use it. This is the question. So we have to get used to live in this environment, because this is going to be the new norm in our region, fortunately or unfortunately I believe for the next decade. And we have to make sure that in our region, there is a close cooperation. We have to make sure that we are not going to take any part in all of those actions, and we are going to have a foreign policies based on our national interests, a national interest of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. And in this context, I would compare South Caucasus to Hormuz Strait, right? So the same concept. The Hormuz Strait is very narrow, but the South Caucasus is a bit wider, but it's a choke point also. So there is a need to establish some platform of cooperation, and I believe that there is already certain platforms established for cooperation between Baku and Yerevan, but we need to develop them more to make sure that in case of the increased in the threat, there are more mechanisms allowing Baku, Tbilisi, and Yerevan to cooperate with each other. In this context, I see that President Aliyev's visit to Tbilisi yesterday was very important in this context. Armenian Prime Minister's visit to Tbilisi in the recent months, it's also important in this context. So we see that, like in the region, we are seeing that understand the need to cooperate with each other, that is growing, and that is very definitely something positive, and we should appreciate that.
Indeed, Ahmed. I was in Tbilisi yesterday, Georgia, covering and analysing President Aliyev's state visit to this country. Incredibly important, of course, event. And we discussed very extensively the question regarding House of Caucasus integration in this region as well. And as has been the case between Azerbaijan and Georgia, connectivity is absolutely key. Azerbaijan and Georgia have built this middle corridor infrastructure in this region, but second tier of that infrastructure is going to be via Azerbaijan and Armenia, and Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity is a central element of that. Arsen, there have already been some very noticeable indications of delay in the initial construction phase of the TRIP, Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, with tensions escalating in and around Iran, and bearing in mind that TRIP is a US brokered arrangement. How concerned are you about the possible delay and its implications for Azerbaijan and Armenian peace process?
That's a great question, and that's one of the topics that is also being quite widely discussed here in Armenia. On the one hand, there is the political aspect of it, which is how important will it be depending on how things develop in case of Iran. A lot actually depends on what the outcome of this war in Iran will be, and that will sort of ultimately also cause whether it's a delay or acceleration of the process, whether this will be even a more viable and a more needed sort of transportation route, or will it be less important depending on how things develop. So that's part of the reason why I was saying that, obviously, and Ahmed was also mentioning that here we have a common understanding and pretty much the same approach on stability in Iran, and sooner rather than later a solution there. Now, the delay was also acknowledged by the Armenian government. Obviously, the US is extremely busy with what's happening in Iran and in the Hormuz Strait, and generally in the wider Middle East. We see the non-stop escalation of this war, not just in Iran, but also in Lebanon and in other areas where we see missiles flying in thousands now by now. And that definitely keeps US foreign policy, whether it's on our region or in general, quite busy with this Iran thing. It's a very difficult thing to sort of predict at this point, because I don't think anyone can actually call what the outcome of this war is going to be. However, again, depending on the outcome, there might be an even more extensive process. I think what Armenia and Azerbaijan in this case should do is continuing conversation with the US on this particular issue, and make sure that the conversation, and not beyond the conversation, the technical aspects and the physical infrastructure building aspects start earlier than later. At this juncture, hearing the extremely dangerous rhetoric that we see and a further escalation of the war in Iran, again, it's very difficult to come out and say or talk about a possible quick solutions when it comes to TRIP, or when it comes to whoever is going to be the investor, whoever is going to work on the particular technical parts and the modalities of the road.
Ahmed, same question to you. How resilient is a TRIP arrangement in the face of escalating tensions in and around Iran?
I believe I partially answered that question in my previous answer. But yeah, we understand that the security cost of this project is going to increase. So that's for sure. But by increasing security costs, the importance of the project increases also. So it means that now everybody is looking for the additional oil routes, for additional logistical chains, especially with the Hormuz Strait being blocked or partially blocked by Iran. It means that everybody wants to diversify these transit routes. So it means that if the TRIP project was like the, let's say, so was second or third importance for European Union or United States in the past, it was important, but not that important. Now, everybody saw that there is a need to diversify these routes. So that is why even the security cost of this project, implementation of this project is going to increase. The benefits of it and the geopolitical will to implement this project is also going to increase. We are witnessing that right now. Azerbaijan can demonstrate that it is capable of protecting these land routes, especially with the 5th March attack to the Nakhchivan airport. That was a message that there is a certain groups in Iran, they want to send a message that they can treat South Caucasus transport routes, special treat the way that they are treating Hormuz Strait. But the President Aliyev's reaction and what was followed from apology from Iranian side to all neighbors and then personal call to President Aliyev, we see that in Iran, they see Azerbaijan is resolute and that these projects cannot be threatened by Iranian military decision-making centers. So this is very important. So that is why, yes, the implementation of the projects were like that Americans have certain say, and TRIP is definitely a project named after Trump. It bears its name. So that is why it's associated with the United States. It's going to have a certain additional security cost attached to that, but it's also going to be very important to implement this issue. So I believe that this is going to help Azerbaijan and Armenia to get more assistance than Washington.
Arsen, recently Russian Deputy Prime Minister Sergei Verchuk gave an extensive interview to TASS Information Agency, and Russia has been not particularly happy with the TRIP arrangement due to losing control, evidently. And recently Prime Minister Pashinyan was in Moscow. We observed a very interesting exchange between the two leaders, President Putin and Prime Minister Pashinyan. And you advised Prime Minister Pashinyan during the first 100 crucial days of his reign back in 2018. What is your evaluation of Prime Minister Pashinyan's performance? And do you think, what do you make of his performance in the light of the upcoming elections in Armenia, which are to take place in 2 months' time, actually, exactly in 2 months' time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was following one Armenian, one Azerbaijani colleague yesterday, discussing this in Russian language, and I think it's quite an unprecedented sort of appearance. What we called it is the Russian side, or Putin in this case, decided to take out the conversation that usually takes place behind closed doors to public. The main goal for him was probably to sort of show his or try to put Armenia's prime minister in quite a difficult position, and by that impact, that's our assessment, impact the elections in Armenia. I think Pashinyan handled it pretty well in general. I think each and every point that was raised by Russia's president was addressed, and in a quite both diplomatic but politically concrete way. And I don't think the Russian side was expecting that. There was also a clear message on Russia's interest in Armenia's elections, upcoming elections, almost not hiding that they are going to get involved. They talked about their friends, ultimately making the pro-Russian opposition also backed by the Russian state, which is the first time that we hear an acknowledgement. So it actually brought more clarity to the Armenian public on who is who in the politics. And I don't think this was a smart calculation by the Russian side. I think in some cases, this will most probably backfire, considering the fact that Russia, or this administration of Russia, is not very popular among the Armenians in the current stage. Last but not least, when it comes to Russia's approach to TRIP and other developments on the Armenia-Azerbaijan front, that was also discussed directly and indirectly. I think on this specific matter, Armenia played it by the book. Right after the August 8th agreement, Armenia came back and communicated with Russia, trying to include them, or saying that if you want to be part of this, you need to do more investments in the railroad system. We have consistently discussed this with them, did not hear much response, and only in February, where J.D. Vance visited Armenia and Azerbaijan, we heard an official statement from Russia. I think it is becoming more and more clear that Russia's understanding and or approach on what's happening in the region, and it is not taking us seriously, or not taking what's happening seriously, is most probably going to backfire. And I don't know if Kremlin or Russia is adjusting their policy or approach, or they will stay or remain or continue the politics that has been conducted in our region for 3 decades.
Arsen Kharatyan, Ahmed Ali, I'm grateful to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Sadly, we're running out of time. I'm sure Ahmed has got very valuable views about this particular subject, but I'm given to understand we need to finalize now. I'm very grateful to you, Arsen Kharatyan, founder of Alec Media, who joined us from Yerevan, Armenia, and Ahmed Ali from the Caucasus Policy Analysis Center, the organization, the name of which I cannot, even if I try very hard, forget. One of the most brilliant acronyms that ever I've come across. Well, thank you to both of you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for that.
Well, a lot is happening in the wider Middle Eastern region. Of course, the looming 6th of April deadline threatening Iran's entire energy infrastructure with horrific consequences for the entire world, preying upon the minds of many. South Caucasus appears to be a region which I earlier described as a terrain of tranquility and relative calm. Well, you've been watching A Context, and see you very soon indeed.